I'm on 560 westbound, just past, I believe, the Buffalo exit, and I think there's a body on the side of the road.
To die of a death of that, a gruesome death, it was just gut-wrenching to see that. It's something that'll stick with me the rest of my life.
On January 30th, 2008, a man named David Jones discovered a body on the side of the road while driving near the Buffalo exit. It was a shocking and horrifying discovery. The victim, identified as Latrese Curtis, had been brutally attacked and killed. It wasn't just a random act of violence. It seemed like a planned and deliberate murder. Law enforcement officers arrived at the scene to investigate, but many questions remained unanswered. The search for justice began as they tried to understand what happened to Latrese. But the big questions were, who would do something so awful in the middle of the highway? And most especially, why? Hello everyone, welcome to Bizarre Cases. I'm Jerry, and today we're going to explore the horrifying case of Latrese Curtis and unveil what led her to his untimely death. With that said, let's get back to the story. Latrese Curtis was born as Latrese Matrell Jones on May 28, 1986, in Raleigh, North Carolina. She grew up in a loving family with her parents, Sherman and Cynthia Jones, and her older brothers Justin and Marlon. Latrese was affectionately called Treese by her family. She spent a lot of time with her father, who often called her his little boy in a dress, because she usually associated with boys. Maybe it was because she grew up with older brothers around. Latrese grew up to become a popular and outgoing high school student known for her infectious smile. Despite her popularity, she remained focused on her education, influenced by her father Sherman, who worked as a corrections officer for young people. Latrese worked hard and earned acceptance into Bennett College in Raleigh, North Carolina. She later attended Wake Tech Community College in Greensboro before starting at North Carolina Central University to study accounting. Despite her success, she remained humble and supportive of her friends, always offering honest advice. At NCCU, she met Darren Lee Curtis, a former soldier studying accounting, who was 5 years older. Darren was described as sweet, shy, and reserved. Even though Latrese wasn't thinking about dating right away, she and Darren had a special connection. They really hit it off, and everyone could see they were deeply in love. Darren seemed like the perfect match for Latrese, and he talked to people with a lot of respect. Shortly after they began dating, Latrese and Darren decided to get married after just a year together. They were committed to each other and ready for a lifelong partnership. Both were dedicated to their accounting careers and worked part-time jobs to make ends meet. Latrese worked in human resources at Sears in Raleigh's Triangle Town Center Mall, while Darren worked at a local firm in the same area. Finally, on April 27, 2007, Latrese and Darren got married. Latrese's family wasn't happy about the wedding, even though Latrese had introduced Darren to them during their dating phase. The news of the wedding came as a shock to them. Besides Darren's shy and respectful nature, they didn't know much about him. Especially for Latrese's protective father, Sherman, the marriage was put under a lot of scrutiny. Latrese's marriage was a surprise for her friends because she kept everything secret. Despite facing challenges, the couple moved into an apartment in Austin Grove, Raleigh, starting a new chapter in their lives. They were filled with hopes and dreams for a joyful future. However, just 9 months later, their dreams came crashing down horrifically. In January 2008, 21-year-old Latrese, who was already in her senior year at the university, shifted her classes to the evening. She talked about starting a family, but confided in a friend, Anisha Baldwin, about concerns regarding Darren's readiness. Little did she know what was to come. On weekdays, Latrese usually returned home around 8 p.m. after classes, while Darren arrived a little later. However, this routine was disrupted on the night of January 29, 2008, and life would never be the same again. The next morning, around 7:30 a.m., a man named David Jones was driving westbound on Interstate 540 when something caught his attention. He noticed an object on an embankment by the road, which stood out from the surrounding foliage. As he stopped for a closer look, he discovered it was a dead body. After a moment of shock, he dialed 911 to report the discovery. The police found the body where David said it would be, near the Buffalo exit on I-540. The woman had been stabbed multiple times, and all her blood was gone. Her body looked pale, and there were large holes in her skin. Detectives believed she had been dead for some time. The many stab wounds suggested it wasn't a random attack, but a deliberate and cruel one. Someone really wanted her dead. The body was sent for an autopsy to find out more. They needed to figure out who she was, but they found no ID on her. Latrese's father, Sherman, heard about the body on the news and tried to reach Latrese and Darren, but couldn't.
Breaking news. Body found on I-540. Had a tarp over it. Nothing clicked.
Later, the police found Latrese's phone and also a car nearby, which they believed was hers. Inside, they found blood, and the car looked like the attack happened there. Subsequently, they collected DNA samples from the car for further investigation. When they identified the victim as Latrese Curtis, they found out that Darren, her husband, had called 911 that morning to report Latrese missing.
911, where's your emergency? I'm listening to problems, but my wife goes to school out at North Carolina Central, and she did not come home last night. I talked to her last night. She was on her way home. She was in the car and everything. She had showed up. The last known place she was at NCCU. Did you talk to her while she was driving? Yes, she had the radio on and everything. She told me she was stopping to get something to eat. I don't know if she was still in Durham when she called me, or she was on 540 coming back in.
Darren later arrived at the scene where he was told how she was found. The police also informed Sherman about the death of his daughter, and it was devastating for the whole family. When Darren Curtis was questioned by the detectives, he said after Latrese's last call, he fell asleep and woke up between 6 to 7 a.m. When he realized Latrese hadn't come home, he called the police. Since he was Latrese's spouse, the detectives saw him as a suspect. They found it strange that he didn't try to find her when she didn't come home. Also, he didn't have an alibi to show he was at home all night. However, Darren cooperated with the authorities, giving them his fingerprints, DNA sample, and also allowing them to search his home and car, but they didn't find anything suspicious. They also asked the neighbors about their relationship, but they didn't know of any. Everyone assumed they were a happy couple. With no evidence against Darren, he was released. However, there were still doubts. Did their perfect relationship have secrets? Could Darren have harmed Latrese to cover up something? Before detectives could explore these questions, they got a tip that led them to a Chrysler Pacifica seen near the crime scene. The car belonged to a man named Robert Lee Adams Reeves, a former pastor from Brooklyn, New York, who was known for starting Cedar International Fellowship and was respected in his community. The car's lights were on, the window was partly down, and despite the rain, the door was unlocked with keys inside. It was parked across the I-540 from where Latrese's body was found. Robert was a skilled preacher and organizer, well known in church circles. Although he was popular in North Carolina, Latrese's family didn't know him at all. His connection to Latrese and why his car was near the crime scene puzzled everyone. To find out more, the police questioned Robert on January 30th, 2008. He said he had only been to church and back home the day before. He mentioned giving his car to his roommate, Stephen Randolph, since his own car wasn't working. This introduced Stephen, who was also an accounting student at NCCU, to the investigation. Detectives learned that Stephen and Latrese were involved in a secret relationship, despite Latrese being married to Darren. Stephen admitted to the affair but downplayed its seriousness. He claimed they got close while in classes together and began their relationship in September 2007. Latrese told Stephen she was separated from her husband, although they were newlyweds. Interestingly, Stephen had another girlfriend named Velma Newton, who was not aware of his affair with Latrese. Latrese seemed to understand that Stephen wasn't looking for a serious relationship, and they were comfortable with their companionship. However, Latrese didn't tell anyone, not even her friends and family, about the affair she was having. She might have been afraid of their disapproval. Robert Reeves brought Stephen Randolph to the police station and said he was willing to answer their questions. Stephen said he had been with Latrese the night before she died. They had sex and used a condom. However, the condom got stuck, and Latrese left to go home. Stephen said after Latrese left, he went to his other girlfriend's house to meet some friends. Stephen gave the police one more piece of information, stating that he had been receiving strange phone calls, and so had his other girlfriend. About a month before Latrese died, they also had their tires slashed, which is why he had to sometimes borrow Robert's car. Stephen denied any involvement in Latrese's death and cooperated with the police by providing fingerprints and DNA. After Stephen's questioning, the detectives had doubts. They wondered if he was honest or lying. They thought he might have harmed Latrese to protect himself, as she wanted a serious relationship. They also thought Darren might have discovered Latrese's affair and acted on it. They even questioned Robert's involvement, but without proof. These were just guesses. They had to wait for lab results. Meanwhile, Latrese's friend, Kimberly, got a weird call from Latrese's phone at 2 a.m. during the murder night. Latrese's autopsy showed she died brutally after being stabbed several times. Her throat was cut, and she had a big head injury. It was then revealed that she must have probably died before her calls to Stephen and Kimberly. It's strange the killer used Latrese's phone to call loved ones, maybe to be cruel or confuse the police.
On February 2, 2008, the police informed Latrese's dad Sherman that they had made an arrest regarding his daughter's death. He was so relieved to hear the news but was left in shock when he heard that Robert Reeves was the killer. Robert was accused of first-degree murder even though he said he didn't do it. They found his DNA inside Latrese's car, which made things worse for him. No one else got charged with anything. This surprised a lot of people, especially because Robert was a respected pastor in the community. Robert's trial began on September 29, 2009, and it was expected to be strange and complicated. Stephen Randolph, a key witness, shared how Robert had acted strangely around him. Stephen met Robert in 2007 when he needed help finding a job. Robert offered him a place to stay but later made strange offers and advances, which Stephen refused. Stephen and his girlfriend received threats, and Stephen's gun went missing. All these were later linked to Robert, including the slashed tires. The prosecution argued that Robert killed Latrese because he was obsessed with Stephen and saw Latrese as a threat. They believed Robert followed Latrese from his house and killed her out of jealousy. The trial found evidence that Robert tried to burn his clothes after the murder. However, the defense argued that Robert couldn't have done it due to his paralyzed arm. They also accused Stephen of having a motive to kill Latrese because he didn't want a baby with her. They mentioned Stephen's knives and swords, but the police didn't test them for evidence. Despite this, the jury believed the evidence against Robert was strong, and they found him guilty after 2 days of deliberation. On October 9, 2009, 44-year-old Robert Reeves was found guilty of killing 21-year-old Latrese Curtis. He got a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Right now, he's serving his sentence at a prison in North Carolina. Sherman Jones granted an interview where he expressed his desire to move on from the tragic incident. He called Robert a predator who didn't just kill Latrese, but also hurt him, his wife, and their family a lot. Sherman added that he still feels sad and lost even after all these years.
I really don't know what the word closure means, cause I hear it all the time, but it's been 12 years, and I ain't got no closure yet, so I guess I'm still waiting on it to come. I see her every day, and it ain't closed yet. It's still there. It's still there. I still cry. I still wonder why.
So guys, do you think there's more to the story? Let us know your thoughts. If you have other cases you want us to discuss, tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.